Welcome into this post-game edition of the Gig'em 24/7 Sport Podcast. Andrew Hattersley here with Carter Karels. I've been on the road today, obviously, checking in with some recruits. You're checking in with us after a 23-13 loss for Texas A&M to Notre Dame. Mike Elko's debut ends in pretty disappointing fashion. Night started with the Wi-Fi not working at the beginning of the game, the internet or the elevator you know, broken at the end of the game. Just kind of the story of the night for how it kind of went. And what you kind of take away from this loss?
Yeah, I think first of all, it was the defensive battle that many of us expected.
Yeah.
You know, I had predicted 17-13, a Notre Dame win. It shaped up about as what we expected. I think maybe it's not a surprise that the offense struggled, but how much they struggled and how much Connor Wigman struggled was sort of the more notable takeaway. Wigman had a bad game. There's no other way of putting it.
Yeah.
He kind of starts off hot. They have the nice drive where they go down the field. They end up having to kind of settle for a field goal, but you're thinking, man, this is better than what we thought it would be. And getting another field goal in the first quarter, starting fairly nice on offense. But after that first drive, he seemed like he kind of got happy feet. He was, sailing balls over receivers. His timing was off. His anticipation was off. It just felt like something was off, right? And we have seen Connor Wigman play really great under the spotlight before. I mean, you think back as a true freshman, what he did against LSU in 2022, Ole Miss a couple of years ago. Certainly impressed in his minimal season that he had last year, action that he had last year. But this was definitely the biggest red flag that you could have seen from him today. And going forward, it's either going to be a hiccup, right? You're going against an elite Notre Dame defense, first year coach, first game. Maybe there's some rustiness coming off the injury. Could it be that? Or is it a sign of what is to come where, hey, this just isn't going to be a very good offense and Wigman's not going to be the first round pick that people might have thought he would be? That's the question going forward that I think we may not know the answer to just yet.
Look, I think the thing for me too, and kind of one of the things I was thinking about after this game is Notre Dame didn't exactly light it up either. If you look at the stats, Riley Leonard finishes 18 of 30 for 158 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Obviously didn't turn the ball over. But the difference in this game kind of feels like Notre Dame was able to get things going on the ground, break off a couple of really big runs. Jeremiah Love finishes with 91 yards on the ground. Riley Leonard finishes with 60-plus yards on the ground. Jadarian Price had a big run as well for a score. A&M, on the other hand, Le'Veon Moss had a touchdown, 20 carries for 70 yards. But outside of that, they really didn't get the running game going either to kind of take any, to kind of open things up Mike Elko said after the game that, there was kind of a sense that running the ball was going to be tough with Notre Dame putting 7 guys in the box. But that leads to opportunities on the outside, and A&M didn't take advantage of that either. And so, I kind of felt like that was the difference in the game, that Notre Dame was able to get things going on the ground, especially on that last drive. Broke off a couple runs, and A&M really wasn't able to get anything going or find many creases outside of, a good first drive and also the long touchdown drive early in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, defensively, I mean, it was the main advantage that we thought A&M would have coming into the game is that defensive front going up against an elite, or not an elite, an inexperienced Notre Dame offensive line. And, I think Notre Dame offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock, early in the game, it felt like he wasn't running the ball enough, and it was kind of like, is the game plan the right game plan for them? And then in the second half, you saw him kind of switch to where he really did start to lean on the run. But the other thing that he did that I think kind of neutralized that pass rush was a lot of quick game, a lot of screens, a lot of quick throws, not a lot of deep throws down the field for Riley Leonard. a lot of quarterback runs too. And, A&M had a lot of opportunities to have some big plays defensively. You think of the sack that Shamar Stewart almost had. Nick Scorton swatted down a pass where he was about to sack Riley Leonard. Will Lee almost may have had a pick six there late in the game, fourth quarter. There's a few different things. Rylan Kennedy almost had a big sack, and Riley Leonard just escaped. And so the defense certainly had plays that were there, but I don't put this as much on the defense because for a vast majority of the game, they were playing lights out. I think the secondary was, a lot, kind of what we've been saying all offseason. Hey, this is going to be a better group than what they had last year. And I thought they looked, a lot better than last year. But I just go back to the offense. That's the big storyline going forward. You look at this team before going into the year, and you saw problems at right tackle. Didn't know who to start there. They went with Demetrius Crownover. You had a running back room where no one had more than 600 yards in a season rushing. You looked at a wide receiver room where no one had 700-plus receiving yards in a season at a Power 4 program. A tight end room, no one had more than 250 yards in a season for a Power 4 program. So there was a lot of lack of proven production on top of a quarterback coming off a significant injury and being limited for a lot of the spring. We saw it all during camp. A lot of receivers dropping passes. Maybe not as an elite of a quarterback as some were talking about, right? You saw ESPN and The Athletic say, hey, this could be a first-round pick. We're kind of in a believe it when we see it mode, and certainly that was validated after tonight. And I still think this is a good football team, Andrew. Notre Dame is a dang good football team. I think after watching tonight and looking at the rest of their schedule, there's no reason that they can't go 12-0. And so is the sky falling? No. Is the offense worse than people thought? Absolutely. But it's still a long season. It's still, things that this offense can improve going forward. It's not going to be a strength of this team. We knew that. But with this defense and with this schedule, this is still a team that can win 9 games, right? This is still a team that can take care of business. And, you looked at the Florida game today. Like, that probably looks like more of a win after watching them get, blitzed by Miami. So I still think, hey, it's not time to overreact. This is not a horrible loss. Did the Mike Elko era start the way that people hope? No, but looking into this game, this is the 17th in the country, and they look just as good as that ranking tonight.
No doubt. This was a 13-13 game, into the fourth quarter. And one of the things that I think stands out in this game is, A&M didn't really take advantage of some opportunities. You look at early in the third quarter, Notre Dame goes for it on back-to-back fourth down opportunities. A&M gets a stop, gets the ball at midfield, and does nothing with it. Have kind of a weird sequence there where kind of Wigman, throws it up to Noah Thomas. I think A&M felt like maybe Notre Dame had jumped off sides. And, that play kind of stands out as one that it just kind of sums up they were just off. Like they couldn't get separation against this Notre Dame secondary. They had some opportunities though, and Noah Thomas was open on one, but what was the read? And it's tough to kind of know what was the read on that play. Le'Veon Moss doesn't get a yard on a ball along the sideline that would have extended that play. There's just plays like that. I think the one thing that does kind of concern me coming out of this game, though, and it's a question that we talked about a lot on the podcast, in the weeks leading up to the season, is who's going to emerge as that number one receiver. And I feel like we come out of tonight, and I don't know that we necessarily have a closer answer. We thought maybe Trey Watson might be that guy as kind of from the tight end perspective. He had a big catch early, but was largely pretty quiet. Was just quiet overall. I think he had one catch for 18 yards. That was his own catch. And,
No.
Janae Walker has 6 receptions for 31 yards, but outside of that, he really didn't have anybody creating big plays down the field, and so that is a question going forward. And I don't think it's going to be answered next week. I don't think it's going to be answered against Florida, but it's just something we're going to have to kind of watch over the course of the season.
You mentioned plays that stood out, and one that just is stuck in my brain is A&M down 7, fourth quarter, late, less than 2 minutes left, 3rd and 10, and what do? They run the football. Now, you could argue, hey, this is, you're trying to set up 4th and manageable, but my goodness, how much lack of faith do you have in your offense and your quarterback if you're running the ball on 3rd and 10 with less than 2 minutes left down 7? To me, that tells you that they have no faith in this passing attack getting going. 100 yards through the air, 2 picks. Talking about those 2 picks real quick, yeah, he had the overthrow. Noah Thomas, got to give him credit. He was open on that play. He was just
Yeah.
overthrown. And then you had Theo Mellon Orstrom. I didn't get the cleanest look at it, but it looked like kind of a forced error on Wigman's part. It looked like, it's hard to know. Was
Throw was a little
Thor,
behind, it looked like.
yeah. Was Thor supposed to stop there, and maybe it was a miscommunication? Did he just throw it behind him? I'm not really sure. So it's like hard to know who that's completely on. It looked like it was on Wigman, but we just don't know what the route was. But certainly, 2 picks where you're shaking your head and thinking, man. And they gave Notre Dame a short field a couple times. Now, Notre Dame didn't quite always take advantage of it. A couple of their touchdowns were on pretty pretty long drives that they sustained. But, yeah, I keep going back to that 3rd and 10. You're running the football. That's something that you do game 6 where your offense is bad. But game 1, like that to me speaks that you don't have any faith in your offense at all. And that would concern me going forward. And this offense has a lot to address in the coming weeks.
No doubt they do. And I got to ask you, just because it was such a storyline coming into the game, from your perspective, how do you feel like the offensive line played? Because obviously that was one of the big question marks, right? What'd you take away from that offensive line performance?
Yeah, I don't think they were a glaring liability like, some people may have feared. I mean, the big plays that they gave up were because they had injuries and they were rotating. Like TJ Shanahan comes in for a couple plays, and what happens? Howard LaCrosse swims right past him and Mark Naboo and gets a sack, right? We saw Armaz Reed Adams go down. We saw Mark Naboo come down. But the difference last year, the last couple of years, your starting center goes down, your starting guard goes down, and there's a huge drop-off. But, Coley Fayu came in, and I didn't think he was a big liability, and they were able to run the ball. They were able to convert, short yardage situations. We saw that last year. How many short yardage situations did they fail to convert? So that might have been a little bit of a positive. It wasn't like Wigman was running for his life. There were a lot of clean pockets for him. He had some running lanes where he could, run through. He had, quite a few nice runs in that game. So I didn't think they were that bad. I think they just had that 1 sack, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I think they did.
And,
They
certainly,
did.
yeah, one of the picks you could attribute to being, there was a pressure there. I think that the overthrow to Thomas, I think he was pressured. So, like, there were a few plays here and there, but, coming into it, we're like, that right side of the O-line, I don't know. And didn't really turn out to be much of a glaring liability, I didn't think.
Got to say, you never know how a game's going to play out until it's played on the field. Did not see, only 1 sack coming between these two sides tonight. I think that was one area that we kind of felt like maybe A&M would be able to exploit Notre Dame a little more. We talked a lot about it coming into the game with Notre Dame only having 6 career starts up front entering this game. Didn't really, A&M was able to get some pressure, and I kind of liked what they did on 3rd down with some of their blitz packages and some of the 3rd down packages. We'd heard a lot about those, but otherwise, not really kind of what we saw. They brought some pressure. They got home a couple times, delivered some hits on Riley Leonard, but otherwise, one sack between the two sides, I think was not what I saw coming in.
Yeah, and I think, Notre Dame's part, again, a lot of quick game, running the football, keeping the chains moving, trying to get third and short, third and medium. Even some third and longs, though, they weren't, getting them. And again, part of it's not finishing those sacks. There were 3 or 4 that they were just right there and didn't quite finish. You even felt like that with the running backs a little, even on that last drive for Notre Dame, where they're fighting for extra yards, and it just felt like A&M couldn't quite bring some guys down sometimes. Notre Dame on the other side, again, I think from a pass protection standpoint, outside of a handful of things, a handful of plays, it wasn't that bad. So it's a positive to take into the next game. I also think another positive is I think they realize that Le'Veon Moss is their best running back, and this is not a committee. Yes, you saw some Amari Daniels. Yes, you saw some E.J. Smith. They're going to get some work, but Le'Veon Moss got 20-plus carries in this game, and it seemed like he was trending that way coming out of camp. He kind of won that job and, certainly impressed a lot last year, just had kind of the injury concerns with missing time the last couple seasons. But after losing Reuben Owens, there was a question, hey, what's going to happen with this group? I think if Owens was still healthy, Moss would still be the number one guy. And I think he showed tonight. There were multiple times where he was fighting for extra yards. He even had help from Demetrius Crownover on one instance where he pushed him forward for 7 yards, which, really played a big role in them scoring a touchdown on that drive. But I think you can feel good about the running game and the O-line. It's the skill outside guys and the quarterback, right, that you're concerned with. We didn't see – I don't know if Donovan Green got a snap tonight. I don't think that surprised me just based off what we saw in preseason camp. But he could be somebody that, as the season progresses, you got to think about how he's a year removed from an ACL tear. Can he be somebody that game 6, game 7 can return to what he was 2 years ago? You would figure that would give a big boost for the offense. So he is one to watch. But, fortunately for A&M, they got McNeese State next week. They can regroup. They can, feel better about themselves by getting a big W and maybe giving some confidence for the offense with a high score total there. But then you head to Florida, and, this is a team that has lost 10 straight road games dating back to the 2022 season. And, they still got to win that one. It's been evasive for them the last couple of years. I don't think they showed, like tonight, even though the offense had a lot of issues, I still think this is a team that's good enough to win that game at Florida, to win at Auburn and at South Carolina and at Mississippi State. This is not a team that's going to go 6-6 in my mind. Now, looking at the message board during the games, I think everyone is pretty resigned and saying, oh, you're going 6-6 now. But have to remind yourself that, hey, this is a good Notre Dame team. It was 13-13 with 5 minutes left. Yes, the offense was very disappointing. Yes, Connor Wigman is a big question moving forward. Can he get close to his potential that some people thought he could have? And but again, the schedule plays out well. This team can regroup. It's a long season, and they've got a good enough defense that they can beat the teams on their schedule that they're supposed to beat.
I think that's a pretty good look ahead forward. I know you've still got a lot to write tonight and a lot to kind of get to. So we'll certainly have plenty more coverage coming this week on the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. Be sure to stay tuned over at Gig'em 24/7 for all our coverage from tonight's game and moving forward into the next couple of days. If you're not a subscriber, we have 75% promo that you can take advantage of if you're looking to jump on board and read our coverage. So thanks again for joining us, Carter. Thanks for jumping on after the game, and we will see you guys soon as Texas A&M looks to rebound next week against McNeese State back in Kyle Field. Thanks, and everybody have a great night.